This conference will now be recorded.
And should we take a moment to introduce ourselves before we just go into it? I totally skipped that part. I was totally inconsiderate. So I'm Brian with Thunder Laser, and we've got Mark with us, and Gary and Chris. And Chris is helping out Thunder Laser too. Mark and Gary both have some CNC experience and are relatively new Thunder owners. So we're just going to go through some of these things today, some pain points and tips and tricks and things like that. So, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Chris Locascio. I am running House of Lasers as well as now on board with Thunder Laser. And I have Legacy Laser, so we do a ton of different types of things. We don't do any CNC stuff, but yeah, we do all across the board, all types of crazy stuff with the laser.
Cool.
And when you guys are telling us your experience, if you could really focus on how it was and set up what you would like to see in the future, on how the process would have been easier, what was missing, what was there that you were like, holy cow, I didn't even think that we would have this, or even from the support side. So
yeah, we're trying to catch all these angles so that we can improve and develop some streamlined workflows for you guys from start to finish. So that's kind of the purpose of this.
You want me to go first?
Well, let's introduce Gary real quick.
I'm Gary Wyatt. Have a sign shop in Shippensville, Pennsylvania. We've been in business for a little over 25 years. Started out mainly with digital printing and cut vinyl. 3 years ago, we bought a 4x8 CNC router. I built a DIY vacuum table for it. And I wanted a laser at the time, but my wife didn't want me to get a laser then. And so last year, December, we bought a laser. And she said the other day, I think we should have spent the money and bought a laser instead of the router. So she's on board with the laser as well now.
Cool. And finally, Mark.
Yeah, I just popped up there.
Hey there.
Yeah, there's a little settings thing over in the upper right-hand corner. I figured that out.
I see. So tell us about yourself, Mark.
I live in Hubertus, Wisconsin. It's a suburb of Milwaukee. I've been retired for about 8 years, and I do have a CNC router, run a little side business, and thought I'd look into getting a laser to offer a little bit more to my customers.
Sure.
And so I did my due diligence. I called a number of the different companies that are competitors of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to the people there. Looked at the pricing structures, what you got, what you didn't get, and I ended up with Thunder actually for a number of reasons, but primarily it was because of Brian. You are a consummate professional in the way that you treated me, and I figure I'm just a typical customer. I wasn't looking at buying, a large machine or spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you gave me all the time and respect that I very much appreciated. And then you followed up. You answered all of my questions, and a lot of the questions I figured were so elementary that you wouldn't take too kindly to that, but you treated me with respect. So the more I looked into this, I found out that other people were saying the same thing, and so the fact that you end up with a machine basically that you can plug in and go.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to buy extra parts and try and piece this thing together. And the way that you handled the business, that sold me on Thunder.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we're able to do that for you. So
Yeah,
that's
I want to add to that. Whenever my wife, Glowforge has the market figured out. Like their marketing is pretty top notch. They trick a lot of people into their machine. I think I was on the Glowforge site. The wife wanted to get a Glowforge. She thought it'd be neat. I was on the Glowforge site and I was asking questions on one of their forums, and the one guy's like, "Hey, I have a Glowforge, but I'd buy a Thunder. If I was buying one now, I'd buy a Thunder." So that's the first I really heard of it. I called and talked to Brian, and I knew I was out getting lunch, and I was on my way back, and probably a 3 mile drive before I got back, I knew that's what I was getting. Like you said, very knowledgeable, very respectful, knew all the answers, didn't have to hum and haw about it. Um, I was very impressed, and I don't want to make this sound the wrong way, but it's nice when you can understand the language that this tech is speaking, and it's nice that you don't have to wait until 7:30, 8 o'clock until they get in. I was looking at a GWiki, and every time I would call them, they would be, "Oh, the tech's not in. He'll get in tonight and he'll email you." Well, in business, like, this isn't a hobby for us. This is our business. I can't have a job halfway through and expect to wait until the next day to finish it. So having someone I could speak to then during business hours was a huge difference.
cool. So, all right, let's jump into this part. I didn't mean to turn it into that. Good grief. Yeah. That's only until after you get the machine. Then, we don't answer your phone calls anymore. So,
I know better than that.
right. So as far as preparation, I've been trying to give people emails after they complete the order and, all excited and the machine's coming. And I need to put something concrete in place, with some structure. And this is kind of what I was looking at. The Book of Thunder, I'm going to reference that a lot because that unified manual used to be 4 manuals in one. But what I like about the Nova series and about Thunder Laser in general, from a technical standpoint, is their list of parts could be on one spreadsheet, not 12. All the Nova series machines use the same motors, the same optics, the same components, the same bearings. For the most part, there's some differences. And that makes it a lot easier when you're troubleshooting, because when you troubleshoot, I come from a background where I'm factory trained on equipment and I go out and I fix it. And then you fix the customer because that's a huge part of it. And doing this has been an extreme challenge for me because my eyes and ears are maybe someone who's never seen a laser before. Maybe they're frustrated and there are emotions involved. And I understand all that. So I'm basically like a bartender. So you can just bounce your stuff off of me and we'll see what happens and we'll make it right. So that's the approach I take, but we need something in place. So as far as preparation, Gary and Mark, Chris hasn't gotten a Thunder yet. So he's just he's kind of here. We can kick him out anytime we want to. So.
What are you looking at getting, Chris? What size?
I have the 51 on the way, but I have 4 lasers here. We're switching gears and going Thunder. So
yeah, he's been in lasers a long time, longer than me probably. Yeah, so he's a good asset.
Before my Thunder 35-100 shipped, I was calling Brian. Do you have a 51 that I can get?
That's a good size for a lot of people. You can put a 4x8 sheet of. Yeah.
The thing that I noticed, because right now we're working out of like a Amish built shed. It's heated, air conditioned, insulated, but the size is limited. I have a 12x28 with my router in here.
Right.
So whenever I was going through, with the 35, I was looking at the footprint, checking it out, had a space just for it, perfectly figured out. And nothing in any of the literature mentioned the 100s have 14, 16 inches hanging off the right-hand side to put the tube.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a shock to me whenever we got it.
Yeah. And actually that is published, but it's obscure. and we're going to bring it to our site so that we'll have that information too, all the dimensions as far as that goes. So.
Yeah, because on the Thunder Laser USA site, all I saw was the basic footprint of the.
Yeah, see here on this one, it shows both of them. See the extrusion here?
Okay.
On that side, and it shows the dimension. But yes, that was not readily available. And when you got that machine for me, honestly, I didn't even know that thing was there. I didn't know that it had an extension. So this is good to know. See, this is why I like doing this stuff.
And are there two different versions of that? Is there an 80 watt that is not protruding, or are they both the same?
The 80 watt.
No, the 80 does not protrude.
Right. That's okay. Just to make room for the 100 watt tube because of the length.
Got it.
And you know, a lot of the questions that I get, it's in the book, and that, you know, I combined them all, and I think China's going to do that too. They wanted my copy, but I've got this viewer on here on the site now, and then, you know, if you want to open it in a new window, you can do that. But 90% of the questions that I get asked are in this book, like pretty much all of them. All the dimensions. I don't know if that Nova 35 dimension, you know, with the 100 watt part is in there, and maybe I should mention it in here. But I'm going to make it in the literature, you know, but power requirements are here. The only thing that's not here is the chiller power requirements, since this is just for the manual. But the good thing about that is, and I really want to show people this, is if you go to the knowledge base, the new users getting started articles are up there at the top too. So right here in support, there's the Book of Thunder and the new users guide. So those are the two best things. But on this search, if people go in there and just search for camera, you know, there's articles, and I'm populating this thing all the time. So I want to get people used to, when I went to copier school, the very first day, all they taught was how to use PDF and do searches, because we had 1,200 page, you know, 2,000 page manuals that we had to search through per model or per series, and they taught us about how to mine that information. And I want that to be one of the things on the forefront of what we show people when they're getting ready for these things, is where to find the information that's already available, and then of course supplement the information that's there. Now, Mark, you had a Nova 24, so you were probably able to plug that in a standard plug with the chiller even, maybe. Do you know if you have a 15 or a 20 amp outlet that it's connected to? I know we talked about it.
Right. I've got it, actually, the chiller on a separate circuit, and and the machine on another circuit. My son-in-law happens to be an electrician, so but with all of this COVA stuff, I'm going to wait until fall to have him come over and run a separate line. But for now, I'm not having any issues at all.
Good.
I've got the chiller plugged into a 15 amp circuit with some other stuff on it, and the laser I've got on a dedicated 20 amp circuit, and I don't think it's using a fraction of that 20 amps. So
right.
There's no issue there at all.
Yeah, these lasers only pull about as much as a hairdryer, honestly. You know, 1,500, 1,600 watts or something like that on the LPSU. So it's not as crazy as everybody thinks. So what about the exhaust? You know, when I was talking to you, I tried to give you links and things, and that's the thing that we want to make a cheat sheet on, so I don't have to remember to send it in an email. But were the links that I do have in there that I gave you about the exhaust, you know, recommendations and that kind of stuff, was that helpful and easy to find, or was it something that you know, we need to put in a different format, or is there information that you didn't get that would have been helpful, that would have been along those lines as far as preparation? I know one thing is, you know, as far as shipping goes, is we need to talk about how close the truck can get, because we have had a few issues, but you know, I've got a section on that later. But what about like the supplies? I think I put in the thing, you know, that you need 2 gallons of water, and I talk to a lot of people and I tell them these things, but I need to find a constant way to provide this information reliably and repeatably. So.
Well, if we could back up a little bit, you've got a bullet point there called Finding Answers. Mm-hmm. I found that the Facebook forum is full of a lot of good information if you Absolutely. Just take the time to ask.
Yeah, we lean heavily on our community, on our Thunder community and our Facebook people and the whole laser community in general, and that's another great thing. So
It is. In particular, I knew that somebody that built a table to put their 24 on, they ended up having to use a step stool,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to do that. So, and I'm short anyway, so I asked a number of people, what size would you make it if you started over, and I eventually figured it out, and I do have a little website. I think eventually I'm going to make a blog on this whole process. But the situation with my table and the exhaust, it turned out perfect, primarily because of the information I was able to get from people on that Facebook forum.
Awesome. Okay. So let me jump to the delivery thing real quick. You got a Nova 24. Gary, you got a Nova 35. That adds a little bit more complexity, as the machine's size goes up, especially with the 63. But I think all the logistics, all this quarter, with everybody that's on this group right now, went really smoothly. What obstacles did you face when the guy actually showed up, Gary, to deliver the machine? Were they prepared? Were they able to get it off with the pallet jack and everything?
Well, yeah, I knew we were in for it when the driver of the truck got out, and he was a young guy, because I figured he wouldn't want to drive where I wanted him to drive, and he was like, "Oh, roll my truck," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, we get deliveries of printers here that the crates are 15 foot long. You're not going to roll your truck on a flat driveway."
Right.
But I have some good friends I got a hold of. There was 4 of them here. My brother, me and my brother works for us, and then a couple buddies showed up, and he got it on the lift gate, worked it around, got it off. We put it into our shop, our main shop garage, uncrated it, rolled it down on the asphalt to the front of the building we were putting it in, and kind of manhandled it, picked it up, and carried it in.
Gotcha.
So we didn't have any issues. It was great. The only thing I would add is I was probably driving Clay nuts, but I was like, "When's it leaving? When's it leaving? When's it leaving?" Finally, Clay said, "Hey, can someone let him know when his laser's leaving?" And I got an email from whoever out in California, I believe, and they're like, "Oh, it'll be there in 2 days." Like, now I really got to get on the ball, because I knew it was coming. I was ready for it, but I didn't have everything ready.
It's amazing, especially with the conditions the way they are currently, how smooth everything has been going. Some cases we're a week ahead of time, and the carriers are actually being so responsive that people are getting calls to set up deliveries before I get tracking info. So
that's what happened to me. Yeah.
And in a way, that's a good thing. It's fast. It's a little bit of a surprise, but yeah, those are other things that we're taking into consideration, and dealing with these other carriers, third party. I don't know how much control we have over that, but of course we do whatever we can. So all of our machines are requested to have residential liftgate. And then the problems are if you're on a big hill or the driver is maybe not motivated enough, sometimes you can stick a 20 in their pocket and they'll get that thing in your garage for you.
I'll tell you a little story about that one. I'm about my garage is about 100 feet from the road, and I do have an uphill incline. And I was waiting for this guy, and I was going to figure on helping him push this thing up the hill. Well, I looked out the door, and here the guy has got the pallet up right next to the garage door. And I walked out and I said, "How did you get that up here?" He says, "Damn, that thing was heavy." So he had it already at my garage door before I even knew it. So, geez. And then I tried to give him $20. He would not take it. He says, "Pay it forward."
Nice.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
That's the typical transaction. That's how it typically goes. Now, that's where pain points come in. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, especially with the Nova 63. That thing is so big, even though we request residential liftgate, even though they bring it out. And the 51, you need to help the driver a little bit, steady the machine, because it's got to get on the lift a little funny. But these 63s are a beast. And a lot of we have the most trouble with that. If at all possible, if somebody has a 63 and it's in a business location, if they have a dock or a lift, it would simplify things greatly. But those are some of the things that we're also developing some concessions for, so that we can notify people of that kind of thing.
I'll tell you what, I don't know how anybody that's getting a machine much bigger than a 35 can cope without a forklift. You know, I mean, you almost need a dock instead of a lift gate.
Right. So on the unboxing, when I unboxed mine, I was supposed to do a video on it. That's what Clay wanted me to do, but I got rid of the box and I had nothing to put it back together in, and I felt cheap and like I was faking it if I didn't actually take it out of the box. But I'm still going to do some more of those videos. The things that I noticed, and the 24 may be boxed differently, but I think the 35s and up are all boxed the same way, is there's nails everywhere when you take that stuff off, and they do not come out easy. I had to bend them over. So
I'll tell you what, though, I noticed that because I've taken other things apart, like other crates, and what was nice about this Thunder crate was there wasn't a cross nail in there. Do you know what I mean by that? Where the nails will be coming in at 90 degrees.
Oh,
so you can't pry, but everything here pried up real nice. So they did a good job there.
Yeah, you know, the history, I think, of Thunder Laser, we haven't had one damaged where we couldn't just fix it in the field ever, of all of those, with all of that, those big things, and I'm sure they stack them. So yeah, they do a good job on the packaging. The book, you know, the Book of Thunder, the manual, of course, is probably the go-to thing, because there is step-by-step, you know, as far as setting it up and taking out all the foams. Now, the picture you see here is actually Odin 22. That's an RF machine that's going to compete with the Epilogue. So that's the only picture I had handy, so I threw it in there. And to leak it a little, because it's coming soon. So I don't have a lot of tips and tricks. Me and my dad got mine off of there, and just rolled it off the crate. We used the sides of the crate and stacked them, you know, to roll it off. It gave a little, but it was a buffer enough where we could get it off there without jarring it around. So, I mean, that was a piece of cake. As far as the actual installation, at this point, you should already be prepared and have your exhaust and your power figured out and all that stuff, and your water handy, so you don't have to run out to the store because you forgot it. I might say that I could have been guilty of that at times. The only things that I saw putting this thing together is the wire in that exhaust duct is very sharp. I mean, I cut myself on it a few times, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But everything just pretty much snapped together. It was plug and play for the most part for me. Anybody else had any other experiences?
I would have to say that everything went together just exactly the way I expected it to. I didn't have any problems with the assembly at all. And like you, I spent a couple of days cutting a hole in the house and running ductwork because this thing is sitting in the middle of the basement, and I didn't want to have an odor situation in my house, so I sealed everything. I mean, just really sealed it up good. And when I got that thing finally fired up, there's no odor at all.
Cool. Gary, did you run into anything? I know we had a solenoid problem. Was that right when you were getting it set up and installing it?
Yeah, that was right when we were getting it set up. The only thing back to where I didn't know it was coming for 2 days until like 2 days before. That was one of the things I didn't get to do prior to it getting here, was get the hole drilled in the wall of the building to run my duct out.
Yeah.
And then I'm not a contractor. I assumed that the local stores would have an 8-inch exterior duct, that, with a flapper on it. And I ran into having to drive about an hour and a half to get that. But other than that, that was fine. Yeah, the solenoid, it wouldn't, I think there was just a particle or something in there that once
Yeah.
I took it apart, then it worked. So
Yeah. We were talking about the air assist. He had an issue where his air assist solenoid was failing, and I've seen those pumps. They're Hylia pumps, but and I know they put a piece of plastic around them, but I've seen a piece of that styrofoam get in there inside the fitting, and then you slide the air connector over it, and it blows that piece of foam through the system, and then clogs somewhere in a needle valve or a relay or something, or a solenoid. So we're guessing that's what happened. A lot of the little goofy stuff that people call about when they're setting these things up is take it apart, put it back together, and it just works again. And I can't really explain it, and all of that, but it's
yeah, I was none too happy that day. My laser sat at the time about a foot and a half away from the wall, and I'm 6'7", 325 pounds. And I was back there with both hands in the back port trying to get those little screws out of that solenoid, and I thought I was going to have to live back there.
Well, I didn't know you were Shaq. I was,
Yeah.
I'm like 5'8" and crawling around behind mine. I'm thinking, it'll be a piece of cake. See, I don't take that into consideration either.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I mean, installation, no real big caveats, I guess.
No.
We're going to expand on that. And then the actual setup, the big things that I want to, reiterate are, of course, the go through the manual again, and the manual inspection, make sure the Z-axis, your beds is seated and all of the blades are in place, because sometimes they get jostled. We had a couple people with Nova 24s that their bed came in cockeyed a little bit, like a blade came up out of the riser a little bit or something, and made it sit a little high, and it caused a head crash. So looking at all the mechanics of that thing and making sure everything looks like it's seated properly and in the right place and that kind of thing is really helpful. I don't know of any precautions on setup other than make sure your emergency stop knob is out, and make sure you don't leave anything laying on the bed, because you could inadvertently move the head or something like that without it being in the way. Also, use your laser power switch underneath the main power switch. When you're going to leave your laser on, you don't want to lose a job or whatever, but you're not running anything, kick that off, and that turns the power off to the laser power supply. And that'll prevent it from firing without you wanting to, just a little safety.
Is there a way to force the exhaust fan on all by itself?
Yes, there's two ways. These are controlled with the TL timer board, and you can access that board. It should be near your DSP in the electronics bay on the right-hand side of the machine. Now that
I know where that is, because I've already reprogrammed the delay time on that. But
Okay.
Is there a way to do it from the control panel?
Not that I'm aware of from the control panel. No. That would be a function of those, cycling through on the TL timer board, or flipping the manual test button on, in which kicks on your exhaust and your air assist. So really the only way is to cycle through it on the TL timer. Now you could introduce a push button or something. I mean, you could signal it, trigger it a different way, but it would.
Well, it's fairly straightforward. I don't have a problem. I was just asking the question.
Yeah.
If it's accessible from the control panel.
Gotcha. So, and my setup, was good. I would check the autofocus, and I'm going to put that in some documentation. I've got a video on it now on how to calibrate that autofocus stop ring that's on there. Sometimes those are out of whack. And then, after that, we'll go into the first run stuff, and we'll cover safety real good. And I should probably in the preparation add about fire extinguishment, extinguishers they recommend, and things like that, like a Halotron or a CO2. They're more expensive, but it doesn't mess up your electronics if you do have to spray it. So on the first run, we're going to develop a learning course and some materials, some sample materials. This is our goal. And make a first run workflow with the files and the materials that you need, in a step-by-step all the way through to create your first project.
tell you what, from a guy that never touched a laser in his life before, I think that would be very valuable because I would have liked that. What got me going, Brian, was that library that you had put together for Lightburn,
Right.
and that gave me some assurance that when I started that laser up on a certain substrate, that it was somewhere in the ballpark. Otherwise, I'd have absolutely no idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty decent for baseline figures, and not everything's on there, but at least it'll let you learn the personality of your laser. I mean, because that's really what it's all about. And like you say, it will get you in the ballpark. But yeah, we definitely wanted to do that, you know, and I can do one-on-ones with people, and we're gonna make some other offerings for that, for some custom, like personalized training, some more in-depth stuff. But we're gonna build some modules. I want to show you real quick what I have in mind. Is Thunder University, and we're gonna do end user training modules, design and enhancement on how to do photos and that kind of thing, corporate compliance, train the trainer, safety things for makerspaces, education and government, and then also for eventually OEM laser technical training, and that's going to work into something else that we're thinking about. But we're going to make this available to everybody. Some of the classes will be monetized, some of the more advanced classes. All of the Thunder related stuff that's related to the machines, of course, will be available to the Thunder owners. But we're going to expand on this and hopefully make a full learning platform here.
Speaking of safety, there were no safety glasses included with that machine, and it is a Class 4 machine. That's correct?
Correct.
So I mean, should there be some kind of safety glasses worn?
Yeah, and I probably
if you're using that pass through.
Not well. I mean, you could get some reflections. Most likely, no. If you're in a corporate or an industrial or commercial environment, or learning or any of that, the public facing, I would make people wear them no matter what. I don't wear mine like I should. But that is probably something that we should do, because, you know, compliance is what gets you. You know, I should probably do a better job of educating people about having some glasses for alignment purposes. You know, when you're having to fool the interlocks and things like that, you know, to do testing and troubleshooting, it is a good idea. If you're just using the pass through, unless you're staring through the hole lengthwise, I don't know that I would worry about it. Normally, under normal conditions, these machines are perfectly safe as long as none of the interlocks are defeated.
Yeah.
And we do offer a Class 1 upgrade on these machines. It adds a couple extra steps and redundant sensors and things like that on the safety interlocks and stuff. Dead man switches, things like that. So, okay. So, really, and then after that, I want to start getting some feedback, which is kind of what we're doing here, but I'm kind of using this as the backbone for our curriculum that we're going to build for the end user. And I'd like to go through this whole series one more time after we think about it, you know, and maybe delve a little bit deeper. I'm going to expand on some of this stuff a little bit and change some things. So I'm always open to suggestions.
One suggestion I would have is, if you're putting that Thunder manual together, de-Chinese it.
Well, it mostly is. There's still a little bit in there, but I've gone a pretty good ways through it. Not all the way, but I've definitely helped a little bit while I was in the process. So
here's something as far as like Mark's de-Chinesing on the guides for powers and speeds and power settings. There's room there. Couldn't we rewrite those and have, you know, 3 millimeter, quarter inch or 1/8 inch, kind of change that stuff around to where people, like, I know you said you think in millimeters now, and I'm starting to get better at it, but like if I look at 3 or 6, I know what that is, but if I look at 20, it takes me a bit to
Right.
to think
And
of how thick.
and I do need to put imperial measurements on everything, and it's in a lot of places, but not everywhere. And I still think imperial because I use FlexiSign and do some vinyl cutting myself, and I still have to think in inches. So it is kind of a weird thing, to transition between those. But yeah, that's definitely something that we can look at too.
Like their plywood, they have 2 millimeter and 4.5. Well, in America, you don't buy 2 millimeter and 4.5. You buy 3 and 6.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to adjust that as well.
Right. And yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't be, I could even create a form, and I've already started it. Then it's going to populate it to a spreadsheet where people can enter in materials, just a quick little form, a non, you can put your name in there if you want to, you don't have to. What model machine, what wattage, what material, what thickness, blah, 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 and put them in. And I'm going to aggregate all that data and have it calculate and find the averages and find things that are similar and kind of go through it and really fine tune it a little bit. And
You know what? A neat thing I discovered with Lightburn is, let's say you're looking at the library and you have your units, you're selected as millimeters.
Mhm.
Everything shows up as millimeters. But if you go over and change that to inches, even the thicknesses in the library convert to imperial.
Yeah, I think the Lightburn will toggle between those like instantly everywhere. It's a global change when you click that, I think.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm also working on the website. We're trying to put more stuff on there. And the future of support, you saw Thunder U, but there's something else. Let me get back to Thunder Laser, and this is I put a tentative date on there. I just did it to take up space. But we're gonna eventually, and Chris is gonna have something to do with this, on-site and premium remote services, including hopefully as we grow it, a nationwide service partner network, so that we can have more people that are Thunder centric to lean on and have them spaced out. So that's something else we're working on. Well, that's all I got. I just kind of wanted to get a feel and get some other feedback. I think these kinds of things are valuable, and I want to do more of them. So
You guys have really got your act together. That's my impression. And the fact that you're even doing this, I mean, that's just the icing on the cake. You're really doing a good job.
well, we're trying to really innovate this year. That's our mission for this year: innovation, support, and
I just
innovation.
hope that you stay healthy and don't get sick, because that would be the whole company if you got sick.
Well, no, Clay can hold
You're
his
jinxing
own.
them.
He did it for quite a while, and I'm sure he still can.
Good.
So, all right,
Yeah,
guys.
this is my Corona cut here, by the way.
I got you. Yeah, I've got a terrible, and that's why you're just looking at my screen all the time this time. So, well, I'll tell you what, man, it's Friday afternoon. You guys enjoy your afternoon. I'm going to wrap up a few things, and I appreciate everyone's input. And anytime you guys want to throw one of these things together, let me know. We'll put it together and chat about whatever topics. The more content, the better, and we can make it available for the community and help as a whole. So I appreciate it, guys.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you.
Chris, you got anything before we go?
Nice
Gary?
meeting you, Chris.
Nice meeting you guys. No, I want to write down some questions and then maybe get back to you guys. Maybe even hit you up on Facebook. But my only concern is basically when you guys got the machine and how you went through from when you received it and your learning process to there. So you guys both have experience with CNC. So the computer programming, the DXF, the file structure and communication you're used to.
Right.
I want to really focus on the people that won't have that, and maybe even see how easy it was for you guys to transition into the sign machine or the CNC and learn Lightburn and how to function with the Rudia controller, how easy it is, and any glitches or any catches that you guys had That's
Yeah.
really my concern, is making it easier for somebody that buys a Thunder machine, getting prepared before it even comes, learning light burn, and then when
Right.
it does come, they just have to set it up and send the file over and go.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so many people buy it and they get so frustrated because either they didn't get any documentation, or the company that's supposed to provide the support is a month or two out before they even, they've got a $20,000 machine sitting there, and nobody showed them how to use it. And that's depressing. And I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have honestly done that to our guys. I mean, not that we leave you hanging, but we pretty much leave them to their own devices. If they need help,
Right.
call. Yeah, we need to be way more proactive in that as we go forward, for sure. So
I know that running a laser is light years easier than running a CNC router. There's so much more with the router. The laser's kind of, well, I mean, it's the Thunder's got it. Like talking to Brian and that, it's helped a lot. But it's I don't want to say it's dumbed down, but it's almost idiot proof. And I'm an idiot, so I'm proof.
But I read these forums, and sometimes I come across comments from some people that I wonder why in the world they even bought a machine, because they are just totally lost, and you wonder how they ever plunk down the money without at least some modicum of knowledge about what they bought.
yeah. Well, I mean, that was me when I got started into lasers. I had an overhead projector that I paid $60 for and put a lamp in it, and traded it to a guy that had a ULS 25, and he didn't know what it was. He thought it was broken, and he needed a projector. So I said, okay, I'll trade you. So I got a ULS 25E for $60, and so I got it home, and there's a contrast knob on the bottom of the LCD display, and I gave that sucker a shot with some electronic parts cleaner and gave it a twist, and it came back to life. The control panel was just dimmed out. And that thing's still running to this day. It was circa 1990, had the original Senrad RF tube in it, had never been recharged, and was still producing 32 watts. I mean, it's incredible machine. But this little sucker sitting behind me, I like better than the ULS by a long shot. And they're gonna stand at attention when they see this thing come out, because it's a serious threat to those $30,000 or $40,000 US made machines. So I'm going to kill the recording since we're off topic.